how bad is sexual harassment in sports today, right? And that's kind of what we want to talk about, because it's seems to be something that's going on. It seems to be at the forefront of what we see. You know, we've heard, and this is where once again it mimics life. We heard a lot about this stuff with, you know, politicians and people of that nature, right? There was a lot of, you know, I think the governor of New Jersey at one time. There's been a lot of other people who have been implicated and talked to, you know, and had stuff happen. And, you know, I mean, person to person in sports, you know, that's a little bit different when you know, but when we're talking about organizations and people in power, you know, like for instance, I think the guy was Sandusky back in Penn State and the stuff that he was doing, right? That's somebody in power in an organization that shouldn't be doing those things. So it just kind of, you know, brings up that topic and everything. And I think we can start off though with what we were talking about, which is the Washington football team. And, you know, this is just a little something they put out there. From dream job to nightmare, more than a dozen women alleged sexual harassment and verbal abuse by former team employees at the Redskins park. Yeah. At the time, that was still the Redskins. Now it's the Washington football team. But what do you think when you hear stuff like that?
I mean, I think in organizations where I think some people of power think they can get away with it. And maybe it's because they have been getting away with it for a long time, and nobody had was brave enough to step up. It's why shit like that happened. Yeah. And that's why that's why the hashtag Me Too movement was huge.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it wasn't because of that's what happened with Washington, but it was because, you know, somebody actually stepped up and say, I'm not dealing with this shit. You're not doing this shit to me, or I'm tired of this shit. You're a person of power. I'm going to step up and speak no matter what it does to my career.
Yeah. And it needs to happen. Right?
And it started the movement.
Yeah.
And it started a huge movement.
I think, like I said, the thing that bothers me most about this issue has to do with these people abusing their power. And I guess that's what it comes down to, because they puts these people in a position where they feel they don't have a choice for their employment, their livelihood, or whatever else the case may be. And so that's what's, you know, a little scary about the situation. You know, when you were talking about the fact that, hold on a second, sorry. When we're talking about the fact of, like, you know, people in the organization who are mistreating their employees and things of that nature, that's, you know, that's stuff that's just, it's scary that it's still out there. I mean, this is stuff that happened, you know, way back in the olden days when you were growing up, probably, you know, the 1900s and things like that, when, you know, around that era. But it brings to light that this country still has a long way to go, whether it comes to, you know, treating people properly or how we handle women and things like that. It's just scary how far out we are on being able to, you know, be in a better position in this country and be able to, you know, just, I don't even know how to, you know, what to, it's just crazy.
Well, like I've always said this, and one of the best quotes comes from the comic book. And not that I read the comic book, but I watched it in a movie, and she said it, Spider-Man's grandmother said it to him about his uncle. With great power comes great responsibility. Unfortunately, there's people that take advantage of that power, and they think that I control everything, and if you don't do this, you're not going to get that. But here's the other thing, the perception behind it, right? And the stupidity and the ignorance behind it, where, like, for example, when Bill Cosby got accused of what he did, and most of the conversation was, hey, that's Hollywood. That's how people's career gets started. I'm like, so you're telling me that for your career to get started, you have to be harassed. You have to be, you have to go do something that you don't want to do.
One of the bigger questions I would ask is that how his career got started? Yeah. Right? Was he pressured into doing things in order to get his position in show business? Because that's the problem that they when they make those comments, they don't think about, right? You're just saying that that's how it is for women. That's what's wrong, right? That's my point. It
that's the
be
problem
that
why
the only
people
way
need to step
women
up.
can come up is by being harassed when you're not doing it to men. And so, if you're forced to do the same thing to a man that she's doing, what are you going to do? Like, are you just going to take it so you can come up in the business? Like, you know what I mean? So that's where that whole thing gets a little skewed to me, and people don't realize sometimes what
people
they're saying.
always have an opinion from the outside, right? Because they're not in that field.
Yeah.
Or they're not going through it, but then when it happens to them, they'll be like, "Holy shit, this is exactly what happened." So, and it's hard because it's scary. Put yourself in the shoe where, man, this person has the power to ruin my career, my life, this livelihood that feeds my family, this livelihood that gives me this beautiful place that I have, this livelihood. Do I want to throw all that away, or do I just put up with it?
Yeah.
It's a scary situation to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why sometimes people don't step up, or maybe somebody steps up and they get made an example of, and then the other people is scared about it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do it. Right. And that's scary because there's people that have that power to say your career is over.
Yeah. That is a scary thing. I mean, and that's why we have to do better at putting the right people in power, right? I think that's where it comes from. Or when we hear things about this, because I hear a lot of rumors too, that sometimes, some of these things just get overlooked or they get sidetracked or whatever else. But it's just, we're, in a world that we need to take these things that happen in the workplace more serious. And that's not to dumb down the individual to individual things that happen outside of, that and everything like that. But we're mainly just talking about, in the workplace, in sports, in that kind of environment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even the Deshaun Watson stuff, right? I mean, 17 or 22 counts of harassment and stuff like that. He could have been considered in a position of power at that time. Now, if it was women who weren't in the workplace, because I think one of them she was a massage therapist for him or something, but the other women who were outside of that, that's a whole different topic for a whole different day, I think. But, it's still, when you're a mainstream person in that organization, like the quarterback and like those types of people, you also have a responsibility because you're being paid by that organization to be the face of that franchise.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about this, what about that? It happened in, I believe, in the gymnast girls.
Well, that's what I was going to get into next, right? Okay. That's, one of the reasons that Simone Biles could be having her mental health issues is because of what happened, with that whole thing, because she was involved in that. You could go ahead and talk a little bit more about it, but I definitely,
But I think this is past that though, because I think it happened in 2017 and 2016, and she finally opened up after that. But
that's where I disagree, because everything that we heard or everything I heard about it coming in is, like you told me, she's a little bit older than most gymnasts at her age, right?
Yeah.
But she felt responsible to be at these Olympic Games because of what happened. To be a symbol and a shining light that, listen, you can try to knock us down, but you can't. We're still here. Mm-hmm. We're still going to do our thing, and you can't stop us. And that was one of the reasons that she went out and she wants to participate in these games. So,
of course.
So for that,
she wants to be the example of, hey, I'm strong enough to deal with this, and you're not going to stop me. And what you did, it's not going to affect me, and I'm going to show it. Yeah, and she was a leader. She's a leader to that team.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the pressure of performing, competition, the expectations, and then to add on top of that, everything she's going through with that. This is the first time she's back since all that stuff happened. When they look like that, can't be easy to go by. All the other girls, they're not competing, right?
Anymore. Yeah. She's the only one still competing.
The only one still competing. That puts a lot of pressure on that one person.
Yep. So. Yeah, and again, this is I was reading through it, and it's a person that they trust, that they trusted. 265 women, I mean, young girls, athletes, accused this guy.
Yeah.
He was the doctor of the organization, right? He was a physician there, and what he did, and they were minors. Think about how it affects them, right? And that's all in the back of their heads, right? And it sucks. Yeah. And there's also, like, I was reading through it, right? And he worked for a college. I think it was Michigan or some other college. They paid out one of the girls 1.5 million just to like and had her sign a disclosure so they can put it under the rug. That's another thing that enables guys like that or people like that. Where organizations like, wait a minute, they worry more about the brand than and they try to sweep it under the rug by giving you this amount of money, but no amount of money is gonna help you recover mentally from that. Yeah. You'll take it. The person took it because it's gonna change the lives of the people around her, like her family immediately. But it's not gonna. It doesn't change the effect, the trauma behind it.
No, not at all.
And the fact that they use that and they had to sign an NDA, that also tells you those people like that or organizations like that are the ones that enable shit like that.
That's what it all comes back to. That's exactly where it was.